Saintly Moms is such an interesting book where you talk about the stories of 25 different women who are saints, but were also mothers. And first of all, I'm really curious to know what inspired you to create this book and why you thought it was an important topic to cover.
Well, because I had three children in 3 years and one day. I was less than 4 years married, and I was in way over my head. And I was a national Dominican actually before I got married. So for 5 years, I was a sister. And then I came home, met my husband, got married. And like I said, in the 4 years of our marriage, I had three children. And so I was overwhelmed. And I was thinking, I am not doing this right. I am not a good mommy. And I was almost close to despair. And I remembered when I was in the convent how I would read stories of the saints and that I would find inspiration and encouragement in their stories. And so I thought, I need to find saints, women who were mommies too, and who not only survived motherhood, but thrived in it. And so I began looking for mom saints. I read the book of Saint Zelly Martin and Saint Monica, Saint Gianna Molla. And somewhere along the line, I began to think, you know what, I'm going to start taking notes on these wonderful, beautiful, holy women so that one day when my children are all grown, I can write their stories and encourage other moms, because I had learned that I wasn't the only one that felt that way, that there were other moms out there too who are feeling like they needed help and encouragement. And so I began taking notes on all the mom saints that I could find, with the thought that one day I would write this book to inspire and encourage other moms too.
I love that. And that really, ties into kind of the next thing I wanted to ask you, which was how do you hope that this will inspire women and encourage them, encourage moms? How do you hope that this will help them both in their own spiritual lives and in their vocation as mothers?
I found that these holy mommies were in all different kinds of situations and circumstances. For instance, like Saint Elizabeth from Scripture, she suffered from infertility for so long. We had Saint Jane Frances de Chantal, who suffered from depression. I have Saint Margaret of Cortona, who was a single mom. And so I learned that no matter our circumstances or our situation, God always gives us the graces that we need to respond to those situations, to trust in Him, to turn to Him, to convert if necessary, so that we can become saints. But I saw always that God sent the graces that we would need as moms to become saints in the circumstances that we found ourselves in. And so that's what I hope that other moms will get from this, is that God always gives to us what we need so that we can become saints. And it's in our ordinary everyday lives that He sends those graces, no matter what circumstance we might find ourselves in.
That is, I think, such an inspirational statement, and yet so simple, that it is just in our ordinary everyday lives that He works with us. And I don't know about everyone else, but that gives me a lot of hope.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, that's what it's about, right? Just accepting the graces He sends to us in those moments.
Yes. Well, I have to tell you, you mentioned a couple of the saints who you included. And one of the first things that struck me about the book was the variety of saints who you included. There were a lot who I was familiar with, but there were also a lot who I had never heard of before. And I was wondering how you decided which saints to include. And was that a conscious decision to have that variety, or did it just kind of happen that way?
Absolutely. So in all honesty, I found like 45 saintly moms, and our Sunday visitor asked me to do just 25. So it was really difficult to pick out just 25. Now they helped me some by saying, take out all the Old Testament mommies. So I took out the Old Testament mommies, but I still had more that I had to take out. And so sometimes it was simply because I didn't have a whole lot of information about some of the saints. For instance, Saint Natalie, I didn't have a whole lot on. Saint Irene, who was the woman who saved Saint Sebastian. She was a mommy saint. I didn't have a whole lot on her though. And so that made it easy, but I still needed 7 more saints to take out. And so in all honesty, I went around to my family and I asked like 5 of my children and my husband, pick a number from 1 to 32. And then I took out that saint. Some really good saints got kicked out. Saint Bridget of Sweden, and Saint Margaret of Scotland got kicked out. But it definitely is my intention to have saints from all different eras, from the time of like Saint Anne and Saint Elizabeth, Blessed Mother, all the way up to modern saints, and saints that we do know that we're familiar with, like Saint Monica and Saint Zelly Martin, but ones that you might not have heard of, like Saint Gladys and Saint Geneva and such. So I definitely wanted to introduce the readers to new saints that they might not have heard of. Yes.
Well, I don't know about everyone else, but I would be happy to see a sequel with all the ones who got kicked out.
Maybe if it's God's will.
Yes. Well, obviously, your primary audience for the book is moms, but I'm wondering if you think there are other people who could also benefit from reading it, who could gain some inspiration or be inspired by these saints.
Yeah, obviously, anybody who loves the stories of saints would love to read this. I mean, not all of us, of course, are called to be moms, but everybody has a mom. And I'm sure in reading some of these stories, you might see some of the characteristics, some of the virtues of your own mother. And not only that, but the virtues that you yourself need to cultivate in your life. So some of the strengths that some of these women have, or some of the characteristics, some of the circumstances they find themselves in, anybody could find themselves in. And so, I think, but all saints inspire us and encourage us and teach us a great lesson on the necessity to trust God, to respond to his grace, to have a relationship with him. I think all saints show us that, just in different ways. And so, I definitely think that anybody would enjoy Mommy Saints, but I do think it speaks really to the heart of a mom. And so mostly moms, grandmoms, women discerning motherhood. This book is really geared for. But if you enjoy reading the story of a saint, this book is really a fun book to read too.